Sir Keir Starmer has suffered a major setback over the government's controversial plan to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. Late on Monday night, Labour's deal was hit by a string of defeats in the House of Lords, including demands for full transparency over the true cost to the British taxpayer. Britain signed a treaty in May, agreeing to transfer sovereignty of the Chagos Islands, while leasing back the strategically vital Diego Garcia military base for 99 years. Allowing continued UK and US operations. Ministers insist the deal is a good one, but the price tag is now under intense scrutiny. The government say the cost will be around £101 million a year, but critics argue it could be far higher. Under the agreement, the UK will pay Mauritius at least £120 million annually for the duration of the lease, alongside a £40 million compensation fund for Chagosians expelled from the islands. In cash terms, that could total to more than $13 billion over the lifetime of the deal. The transfer follows years of negotiations that began under the previous Conservative government, after a 2019 advisory ruling by the International Court of Justice said Britain should relinquish control of the territory. But peers from across the House of Lords have now pushed back. First, ministers were defeated on plans to lease Diego Garcia back for 99 years, after an amendment ruled payments to Mauritius should stop if the base can no longer be used. Then came a second defeat. The Liberal Democrats backed a proposal for Chagosians living in the UK to have their say in a referendum. A third blow followed, with peers voting to force the government to publish full and detailed costings of the deal. And finally, the Lords backed greater parliamentary oversight, giving MPs the power to hold payments if Mauritius breaches the treaty. The government did narrowly avoid defeat on one amendment, which would have blocked the handover entirely without majority backing from the Chagosians. But politically, the damage was done. Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel branded the defeats humiliating, accusing Labour of putting Britain's defence and security at risk. The legislation now returns to the House of Commons, where ministers will attempt to overturn the Lords' amendments, setting up a high-stakes parliamentary showdown. The row over the Chagos Deal is far from over.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cybercriminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
But Sir Keir Starmer has suffered a new blow in his bid to hand over the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. The Prime Minister defied by peers over the agreement that will see the archipelago transferred to Mauritius in a deal experts warn could cost taxpayers $35 billion.
Well, as part of the agreement, Britain would rent back Diego Garcia, which is the island that is home to a British and American military base, as part of that Chagos archipelago.
Well, joining us now is former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Dame Arlene Foster. Arlene, thank you very much for joining us. So this is a bit of a merry-go-round with this, because even though there's been stallings, it is likely that it will still go ahead. What are your thoughts on the situation with the Chagos Islands?
Well, it's good to be with you both and to have a conversation about the Chagos Islands in the context of self-determination, because we're talking a lot about the self-determination of Greenland at the moment and the fact that they want to remain with Denmark. But of course, the Chagosian people have never been asked as to what they want to do with their homeland. Instead, it's been handed away to Mauritius, and then we're renting back an inordinate amount of money to be able to have our security base there with the Americans. And what we were trying to do yesterday in the House of Lords was to say that we need to speak with the Chagosian people and give them their voice, because of course these people were removed forcibly from the Chagos Islands in the late 1960s by a then Labour government. They were dispersed across the world to the Maldives, to the Seychelles, and here in the United Kingdom. And they have never been asked in relation to the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands. It then became the British Indian Ocean Territory, one of our overseas territories. And what we're doing now, or rather what the government wants to do now, is to hand away the sovereignty of that territory to Mauritius. I believe that's wrong, particularly when we haven't asked the Chagosian people what they want to see happening.
I was going to say, it's ironic. It's ironic, though, that Sir Keir Starmer should be championing the sovereignty of the Danish people, but he doesn't seem to be so bothered about the Chagosians when he's giving away the islands.
That's precisely the point, Nana. If we're going to take positions on international matters, then the very least we should be is consistent. And we're not being consistent. Of course, when we put that point to the government, they say, oh, well, it doesn't apply in this instance because there isn't a permanent population on the Chagos Islands. Well, the reason why there's not a permanent population on the Chagos Islands is because we forcibly removed them. And I think it's absolutely scandalous that we're not allowing people to have their voice. And that's why we last night had a number of amendments that were agreed in the House of Lords, and so it will now go back to the House of Commons, and I hope that the House of Commons wakes up and realises what this government is doing.
I mean, using the logic of this government, if Donald Trump sweeps into Greenland, removes the population so there's no longer a permanent population there, well then there's no self-determination to be had. He can take the island. I mean, it's bonkers logic. But Arlene, your amendment, one of your amendments last night was, of course, to have a referendum of the Chagosians. That fell by less than 10 votes. But there were some amendments that passed, and it now seems that the government has delayed what was going to be a vote tomorrow to ratify the treaty, and it's going to be delayed right through until the 12th of this month. Is the government worried that they might actually face a setback in the Commons as well as the Lords?
Well, I'm very pleased that they have delayed the third reading of this bill in the House of Lords, because there's another element to this as well, Tom. There's actually a court case going on in the High Court. There's a judicial review, and the determination of that judicial review has been delayed for a number of months. We're told now that we're going to have that determination on the 12th of January. So I don't think it's any mistake that government have now decided to have the third reading on the 12th of January. We in the Lords were very concerned that we were going to have the third reading before the High Court had given us judgment. So I'm now hopeful that we will have that judgment from the High Court. But I would just urge the government to pause this entire treaty, because there needs to be a meaningful engagement with the Chagosian people. We cannot say and lecture other governments on self-determination when we aren't allowing self-determination for people who we displaced in the late 1960s. I think it's a scandal. I think it's something that needs to be exposed, and I hope that through the amendments that we've put down in the House of Lords, we've been able to highlight what has been happening in the government's name to these people.
And also, very briefly, the peers voted in favour of renegotiating a key term of the Chagos Deal. So if the island is unusable as a military base, then we should have to stop paying rent for it. I mean, it just seems a very ill-thought-out proposition in the first place.
I really did support that amendment in the name of one of our former Chief of Defence Staff, Lord Craig, supported by another former Chief of Defence Staff. And essentially, it was a very sensible amendment to say, well, if it's unusable in the future, we shouldn't continue to pay money. But for some reason, the government wouldn't agree to that. I mean, I think it's a very sensible thing to say that if it's an unusable base, that we shouldn't continue to pay for it. However, there have been a number of amendments now passed with the House of Lords. I'm pleased about that. It will go back to the House of Commons, and I hope overall the government sees sense and pauses this treaty, because you and I both know there's a lot going on in the world at the moment, and I do not believe we should be handing away sovereignty of this very key asset in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, absolutely, especially without even the permission of the people who live in it or who were initially living in it. Arlene Foster, thank you very much. That is a former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Dame Arlene Foster. Thank you.